Good morning, listeners of Hot Topic and Fresh News. Today, the 30th of May, 2024, at 7:17 in the morning, we are diving into significant news out of Serbia. Local elections are scheduled in Novi Sad and NIS, where the opposition hopes to challenge the dominance of the Serbian Progressive Party, led by President Aleksandar Vučić. Despite the opposition's limited visibility, the dissatisfaction with the current administration is palpable among the public. Previous elections have seen their share of controversies and irregularities, prompting negotiations for amendments to the electoral law. In Novi Sad, the opposition has united to form the broadest coalition yet, aiming to seize control from the ruling party. On the other hand, in smaller towns, the fear of repeated electoral misconduct looms large. Voter turnout is anticipated to be a decisive factor, especially with the prevailing confusion over the boycott and coalition compositions. In a final effort to consolidate support, President Vučić is scheduled to lead a large rally in NIS on the closing day of the campaign. Each party is pushing for a high voter turnout, with the opposition seeking change and the ruling party confident in maintaining its hold. Stay tuned as these developments continue to unfold, shaping the political landscape in Serbia. Good morning, everyone. You already know me, this is Emily.
And I'm David, at your service.
We're here every day on Hot Topic and Fresh News, bringing you the latest and most critical updates. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to stay informed. Now, let's dive into the headlines.
What's the strategic significance of these local elections in Serbia?
These elections are crucial as they could signal a shift in political power within key cities like Novi Sad and NIS. Historically, control over these areas has been indicative of broader national trends, making it a bellwether for the general mood towards the government.
How has the opposition managed to gain traction despite reported irregularities in past elections?
They've been building a broad coalition, which is unprecedented in its scale and diversity. This unity is a direct response to the public's growing disillusionment with ongoing governance issues. It's a strategic move to consolidate the fragmented opposition voices into a single, more potent force.
Could you share a bit of trivia related to Serbia's political landscape that our listeners might find intriguing?
Absolutely. Did you know that Serbia, historically, has been a battleground for various empires and influences, which is reflected in its political culture today? The country's strategic position at the crossroads of Eastern and Western Europe has made it a focal point in geopolitical conflicts for centuries. This deep-rooted history often plays into the modern political tactics and alliances seen today.
With the elections drawing near, what should our listeners look out for?
Keep an eye on voter turnout and any reports of irregularities. High turnout, especially in the cities, could greatly benefit the opposition, whereas low turnout might suggest continued skepticism about the electoral process among the populace.
And what's the immediate impact of these elections on the residents of these cities?
The outcome could influence local policies, especially those related to public services and economic initiatives. It also has the potential to reshape the political landscape, giving more voice to the local concerns in the national dialogue.
Fascinating insights. Let's keep monitoring how these developments unfold. Thank you for breaking it down for us today.
My pleasure. Stay tuned as we continue to cover this and other hot topics here on Hot Topic and Fresh News.
Can you highlight the main factors contributing to the low-key election campaign in cities like Novi Sad and NIS?
The subdued nature of the campaign likely stems from a mix of voter fatigue and a strategic move by the opposition. There's a clear effort to avoid the fanfare typically associated with elections, possibly to focus on grassroots mobilization and direct engagement with the electorate, which can be more effective in stirring up those who are disillusioned with the status quo.
How significant is the unity among opposition parties this time around?
It's quite significant. The unity is not just a show of solidarity, it's a tactical adjustment to the political landscape. By coming together, these parties are pooling resources and sharing a platform that better resonates with a broader segment of the electorate. This could be a turning point if it translates into higher voter turnout, especially among those previously disenchanted with the political process.
What role have the reported irregularities played in shaping public sentiment ahead of these elections?
The irregularities have undoubtedly cast a shadow over the electoral process, engendering a mix of outrage and skepticism among voters. The reports of manipulation and threats to voter rights have galvanized some to demand more transparency and fairness, which in turn has rallied more support for the opposition, seen as the flag-bearers for these demands.
With the historical context of irregularities, how might this affect voter turnout?
There's a double-edged sword here. On one hand, the outrage over past irregularities might motivate a surge in voter participation from those wanting to correct perceived injustices. On the other, it might deepen cynicism among others, leading them to abstain because they feel their vote won't count. The opposition's challenge will be to harness the former while converting the latter into believers in the power of their vote.
Considering the potential for a pivotal shift in political power, what should observers look out for during the election results?
Observers should watch for discrepancies between reported results and independent exit polls, the turnout rates particularly in urban centers like Novi Sad and NIS, and any last-minute reports of electoral malpractice. These factors will be crucial in determining the legitimacy of the election results and the future political landscape in Serbia.
How significant are the amendments to the electoral law in fostering fair elections in Serbia?
The amendments are a step forward, especially those preventing the manipulation of voters' addresses. While this represents progress, it doesn't address all the systemic issues. Real electoral reform goes beyond just technical adjustments, it requires broader changes, including media freedom and the independence of electoral bodies.
With the opposition split, how does this affect their strategy and public perception?
The split undoubtedly weakens their collective bargaining power. Public perception might view this as disunity and inefficacy, which could demoralize supporters and reduce their ability to present a united front against the ruling party. However, it also reflects the diversity of thought within the opposition, which can be a strength if managed correctly.
Could you elaborate on the strategic differences between the groups opting to boycott and those choosing to participate?
Those choosing to participate see engagement as a way to continue pressing for change from within the system, hoping to leverage even small gains. On the other hand, the boycott faction perceives participation as legitimizing a flawed process. They argue that abstaining from the vote sends a stronger message about the illegitimacy of the elections.
In terms of potential outcomes, what might the impact of the I Choose to Fight group's participation be on the elections?
Their participation keeps the dialogue open and maintains some level of pressure on the government to adhere to the new regulations. It also ensures that there's at least some representation of dissenting voices in the electoral process, which is critical for a functioning democracy.
How do the recent changes in the opposition's strategy resonate with the voters in Novi Sad?
In Novi Sad, the collective hope and the coalition of 12 parties suggest a strong local desire for change. Despite the odds and the irregularities, this broad coalition might inspire higher voter turnout, driven by the belief that a united opposition can indeed make a difference. This optimism, however, must be tempered with realism about the challenges they face.
With the diverse strategies within the opposition, how is this impacting voter clarity and turnout expectations?
The opposition's split tactics have created a complex environment for voters. The introduction of phantom lists and the mixed signals about boycotts versus participation have muddled the electoral landscape, potentially paralyzing voter turnout. If voters are unsure who is actually running, or what these groups stand for, it can lead to apathy or mistaken votes, which doesn't bode well for a democratic process.
Do you see any strategic advantage for the opposition in these smaller towns like Back, where vote-buying allegations have surfaced?
It's a double-edged sword. While the allegations of vote buying highlight the challenges within the electoral system, they also galvanize opposition campaigns to push harder for transparency and fair play. This could energize their bases in smaller communities, potentially increasing turnout and engagement out of a desire for change.
Regarding the large rally planned by the SNS and NIS, could this be a sign of insecurity about their standing with voters?
Absolutely, large rallies like this could indeed be a sign that the ruling party feels threatened. It's a show of strength but also an attempt to consolidate support at the last minute. If they were confident in a straightforward victory, such extensive efforts might not be necessary.
Moving to a personal perspective, what's your take on the effectiveness of election rallies in today's digital age?
In my view, while digital campaigns are crucial, traditional rallies still play a vital role. They create a sense of momentum and community among supporters that digital platforms can't fully replicate. Rallies energize the base in a very visible, tangible way that can be crucial in close elections.
But don't you think that in a world where digital outreach can literally target voters with precision, the resources spent on rallies could be seen as somewhat outdated?
I understand that viewpoint, but rallies also offer a platform for real-time, unfiltered interaction which can sway undecided voters. The energy, the crowd, the direct engagement, all of these elements can make a significant impact, especially in regions with lower digital penetration.
I apologize, that's a fair point. The human element in politics can indeed be a decisive factor, and not everything can be replicated digitally. Considering the statement about NIS's potential financial constraints under an opposition victory, how significant is the alignment between city and national governments in terms of local development?
It's tremendously significant. Without fiscal support from the national government, a city like NIS could struggle to fund critical projects, regardless of who is in power locally. This dependency highlights a larger issue in the political structure, where local initiatives might be stifled if they don't align with national priorities. It's a tightrope that local governments often have to walk.
Does this complexity suggest that voters might favor the ruling party to ensure that alignment?
Potentially, yes. Fear of losing financial support could sway public opinion towards the ruling party. However, it also puts a spotlight on the need for reforms that grant more financial autonomy to local governments. Such a shift could empower cities to implement changes that reflect the needs and desires of their local constituents more directly.
And what implications does this have for the opposition strategy?
The opposition needs to articulate a clear, viable plan for how they will manage these challenges. It's not just about winning an election, it's about demonstrating that they can govern effectively, even under constraints. They need to reassure voters that they have a robust strategy for navigating the complexities of government funding and intergovernmental relations.
As we near the conclusion of today's report, what should our listeners keep an eye on in the coming days?
Viewers should watch for any last-minute changes in campaign strategies, especially in how candidates address these financial and political alignments. Also, monitoring voter turnout and any reported irregularities will be crucial in understanding the broader implications of this election for Serbia's political landscape. Thanks for tuning into Hot Topic and Fresh News today. We delved into the complexities of the upcoming elections in Serbia, discussing the potential outcomes and their broader implications. We appreciate your engagement and interest. Please make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay updated. Your feedback and shares on platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and beyond really help us grow and bring you more content.
And remember, folks, we're here to keep bringing you the freshest insights every day. If you thought today's discussion was intriguing, just wait till you see what we have lined up. Keep those notifications on so you won't miss a beat.
We're grateful for your continued support and truly look forward to bringing you more discussions like this. Thank you for being part of our listener community.
So, don't forget to tune in, share, and discuss. There's always something interesting happening here.
Stay in the loop, keep your eyes on the news, our channel's content will amuse.